Hi, this is the Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of November 15th, 2017. 7 o'clock. We will get going tonight with our first applicant. If Andy wants to.
Application of Frank and Joyce McNeil of 4 Elizabeth Lane, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Request a special permit of finding in accordance with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6, and/or Section 810.2 of the Scituate zoning bylaw to construct an addition to the pre-existing non-conforming dwelling at 15 Hazel Avenue in Scituate, Assessor's Map 50, Block 13, Parcel 19, increasing the gross floor area by more than 20%.
The applicant wants to come up? How you doing? You can have a seat. If you should just want to.
There we go.
Thanks, Neil. A little better.
Thank you.
You just want to state your name and address for the record, Bill?
Yeah, Frank McNeil. 4 Elizabeth Lane, West Bridgewater.
Joyce McNeil, 4 Elizabeth Lane, West Bridgewater.
Pat Fisher, Fisher Associates Architects in Weymouth, Massachusetts, 35 Fisher Road, Weymouth.
And if you just want to tell us a little bit about your project?
I would like that, thank you. Mr. and Mrs. McNeil are the owners of the property, 15 Hazelwood. It's a home that has been in the family. They have purchased it from Mr. McNeil's mother and father-in-law, or stepfather, I'm sorry. Mr. McNeil grew up in Scituate, has lived in a number of different addresses in Scituate. He and his wife currently live in West Bridgewater, but they are planning to retire now, and they would like to make this their permanent home, and they wish to age in place. So one of the things they need to do to this home is to add a bedroom and bathroom that is accessible on the first floor of the home, and they would also like an enclosed garage. The house currently, as it exists, is very small, so even though they're only adding a master bedroom suite, it puts us over the 20% square footage of that it would be allowed for this house. In addition, they would like to improve the aesthetics of the house. It's currently a somewhat unattractive house. It's dark brown, kind of haunted house looking. We'd really like to...
We don't have houses like that in Scituate.
It's an old carriage house, so inside it's really kind of cool. But I think we would really do a service for my client and for the neighborhood to improve the aesthetics of this house. They would like to put a farmer's porch that wraps around 2 sides of the house. And in so doing, they will be encroaching on the front yard setback. But I think, an open porch, very attractive, improve the aesthetics. If anything, it won't be a detriment to the neighborhood. It would be an improvement for the neighborhood and certainly help everyone's property values, including their own. And it'll allow them to, spend their retirement in the town that Mr. McNeil grew up in, Scituate, and be able to live in an accessible home that they can age in place. I don't really find anything that they're doing here is terribly detrimental. I think it'd be, a good addition to the neighborhood.
Well, a few things. I noticed you provided us with this plan, I don't even know if it's, plan of land, and you've got average, looks like you've listed setbacks?
Yes, what we were trying to show is that the rest of the neighborhood is fairly close to the street, and in fact, none of those houses on the site plan actually helps our argument, but
Well, I'm glad we're on the same page, Heather.
however,
Which is why I wondered why you provided.
we went as far as your zoning ordinance allows us to go, and of course, right after that distance is where all the houses are close to the street. So I brought pictures of those houses, but they're beyond the distance that we were allowed to use for the averaging.
Right.
I also have a video. I drove up and down the street so you can see all of the other houses, and you can see, really my client's house really doesn't look, in this picture, doesn't look like it's very close to the street. Can I bring this up to you? Okay, great. This is this brown house right here, and as you can see, as you drive down the street, this house looks like it's very much forward of it. And then these houses right here are just beyond the distance that we're allowed to measure, and they're very close to the street. You can see how little front yard they have. And there's a series of those houses like that.
Well, unfortunately, like you said, I don't think it really helps your argument one way or the other. In general, I don't have a problem at all with the 20%. I have a little bit of some issues with the moving it forward. You're at 29.2, and the proposed looks like 21.2. So, and I think that that wouldn't be a problem if you didn't want to cover the front porch. So you could do your covered farmer's porch, I would see, on the one side.
Right.
So, I mean, unfortunately, because of the numbers, you really can't take advantage of that bylaw 620.4. I'm wondering about if pushing the garage back a little bit, if you could do that, because you have some room on the rear side.
Yeah, I think that could work out. How far were you talking, were you thinking to push the garage back?
29.2?
29.2.
Oh,
Well, that would put it with the...
it's a common number.
I don't know that you could have it quite so big.
Yeah,
That wouldn't
that's the
increase your
problem.
nonconformity,
right.
Right.
although it is attached, I assume, by the
Yes,
plan. So-
yeah, the garage and the bedroom are all attached to the existing home. Yeah, the purpose of the farmer's porch across the front of the house, which is covered, is for the aesthetics, to improve the aesthetics of the
Right,
house.
right.
So putting just an open deck, basically, I don't think would do anything.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen people do,
Yeah, you could do a
Like
pergola type style, just a trellis, just open rafters, no
Oh.
roof.
Okay.
You could get the same look without the, being covered, it becomes an encroachment. Uncovered,
It's not an
How
approach.
do you guys feel about that? I think we could make that very attractive.
I think part of the problem, what we get faced with is people, keep doing that, and then that kind of pushes that line even closer,
Right.
which, is uncomfortable. It's not on a portion of street, where, it is on a portion of the street where everybody's pretty close to, the required setback.
Correct, correct.
So that would be my concern.
Okay.
But the 20% is in and of itself is just not an issue for,
Okay. So if we pull the garage back to the 29.2, and the front porch becomes a trellis or pergola,
Yeah, even if you carry the same roof pitch that you have on the balance of the porch, you'll still conform.
okay. Right, so you guys okay with that? Yeah, I think that's a great solution.
Bob, did you have any?
No,
Question
not
that-
beyond what you've already discussed. I think that is potentially a good solution.
Any questions from the audience?
Question, the garage, is that, as you look in the
Yeah.
You
garage,
just want to address it,
11 Hazel Ave.
and then also, you ask us the questions, Will.
Okay.
Thanks.
To the
name,
chair,
name.
we don't have the advantage of seeing the plans.
You have to identify yourself.
Elaine Gordon, 11 Hazel Ave, so I'm a direct abutter. Is the addition to the right of the house or to the left of the house?
It's to the right of the house.
Okay, so it's currently where the driveway is.
Yes.
I'm a little bit concerned about the drainage issue, because that is a very fragile area. Will it mean increasing or decreasing the amount of permeable soil in that area?
Yes, they're going to probably add, with adding the addition, I'm not sure if there's an asphalt driveway there now.
There is in the front, yeah, sure. There's a two-car driveway in the front.
Right, and then where the addition is going, it's grass towards the back of it.
Yes.
With the 20%, would they have to do the planning board, or no? The stormwater?
It would certainly increase the non-permeable material, non-permeable area of the lot, but they can't create runoff to neighboring properties. They can't. It
Do we have, what kinds
Can't
of
be done.
assurances do we have? I mean, we've had building in the area and consistently been assured that it's not going to cause a problem, but sometimes it does. So are there assurances from the contractor that that will not be the case?
It may not be the case. It cannot be the case. It's not allowed. And if you were uncomfortable with what the results are, then it's something to take up with the neighbor. But we don't do a stormwater runoff study. It's not part of this application. The applicant wouldn't need to be before us, other than the fact that their lot is undersized. So the addition they're looking to put on, as long as it's within the building setbacks, and they're not creating any new nonconformities, it's their right to do with their land.
Do I understand that there's no increase in the dimensions of the house to the left of the house?
That's,
The-
no, that's, there's a farmer's porch going to the left.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby's the head. Oh, no.
John, I might add that the planning board will look at this as well in terms of if there's over a 25% increase in the impervious area on the site. And you can see that here, it's not, the information's not on these documents.
Oh, it is. It says 34%.
That's 34% floor area.
Right, but I think,
We're
I don't think it
talking
quite
impervious.
triggers that, but it could.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Then it would need a stormwater review and at least an administrative review of the stormwater maintenance system.
Thank you.
Yes?
Hi, I'm Jane Comfort. I live at 6 Hazel Ave, which is across the street and to the left of the property. I'm concerned about the comment about the permeable land. The house next door, directly across from this house, has had an excessive tear down and rebuild, which has got an excessive impact on the land and the water flow in the area. So any additional building across the street is going to have additional runoff. It's going to hit the town as well as those neighbors. And when it hits the town street, it runs off that main street. It's going to run down all in front of all the rest of ours. So I guess I'm confused as to why there's not a level of responsibility regarding water damage or
Well,
concern in building.
well, the project hasn't, well, we'll look into it, but we don't believe it's triggered a stormwater drainage because of the size of it. It's not that large, but those calculations will be done when they apply for the building permit to see if it does have to go under review by the planning board. But as we look at it now, it's pretty close, and I don't think it does.
Okay, so if I'm hearing correctly, is if it's not deemed that it is and multiple houses can be built and impact the overall of the neighborhood, it doesn't matter in collaboration, it only means by independent parcel.
Yes, that's what it's based on. Any other questions? We have a motion?
Move to find that the proposed addition, as described on plans by for C.S. Kelly, Land Surveyors, dated September 27th, 2017. And name of the, and McNeil Residence, 15 Hazel Ave, stamped by Patricia Fisher, by Fisher Associates, dated June 16th, 2017. Will not create any new conformities, and to the degree that they may increase existing nonconformities, shall not be considered substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, provided that the porch area to the east, shall not be covered, other than in the form of a pergola or like material, and that the proposed addition to the north shall be adjusted to be minimally 29.2 feet from Hazel Ave.
Well, it should be from the property line, I think.
From the property line, excuse me, from the property line, on Hazel Ave.
And I think also we'll need a
Revised plan.
revised plan showing what we spoke about on paper, so that
Prior to the issuance of a building permit.
prior to the issuance of the bill.
Okay, so is this part of the building permit application, we can turn all that in
Yes.
to the inspector? We don't need to come back here?
Yep.
Okay, great, that's not a problem.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome.
Congratulations.
Who's up?
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your time.
Who's up, Ann? Annie?
Anthony.
Anthony's up? I'll do it if you want.
Thank you.
And next. Sure.
Arthur and Carol Shannon of 32 Scituate Avenue in Scituate request a special permit finding MGL Chapter 48, Section 6, and/or Section 810.2 of the Scituate zoning bylaw to allow the addition of a farmer's porch to their pre-existing non-conforming homes located at 32 Scituate Avenue in Scituate, Assessor's Map 39, Block 12, Parcel 9.
Good morning. Yeah. My name's Greg Morse. I'm a registered engineer with Morse Engineering. With me is the applicant and the property owner, Arthur and Carol Shannon. The property is located at 32 Scituate Avenue. It has their residence on it, a single-family dwelling. The lot itself is non-conforming with respect to frontage. This is in the R3 zoning district. It has 75 feet of frontage when 100 is required. The house that's constructed on the property is non-conforming with respect to the front yard setback. It exists with a 29-foot front yard setback when 30 is the requirement by the bylaw. The Shannons would like to construct a farmer's porch. It's a 5-foot wide farmer's porch across the front of the house. Where we've proposed it, it complies with the side yard setbacks. It obviously encroaches into the front yard setback. It intensifies that existing nonconformity. It would bring the 29-foot existing nonconformity to a proposed 25-foot setback. We felt that the board could review this application and make a determination that it's not substantially more detrimental, based on the fact that houses along the street typically in this neighborhood have porches along the fronts of them. The direct abutter has a setback of 26.8 feet. To the right, as you're looking at the plan, the house next to that is at 18.6 feet off of the front yard. Again, the average front yard, if you look at the houses up and down Scituate Ave, does not justify anything closer than 26.8 feet. But again, we're bringing this application forth.
You haven't provided us with those
Averages?
averages?
No, because I'm not trying to take credit for the average front yard setback. I'm showing that it's at 30.
It seems, it seems to me if you had 18 on one side and 24 on the other side, and if we took the averages, it seemed it'd be almost a matter of right.
Unfortunately, you
If we had
have to
that
go
information.
200 feet on either side, and when you
The
do that
others.
on the opposite side of the houses are set back further than the 30-foot.
Yeah, but you only count them as 30 foot.
Exactly, you only count them at that, so that it averages out at 26.8 is the average front yard setback along the street.
And you don't want a
A 3.8-foot
deck?
farmer's porch. or-
Yeah, but I mean,
Well, yeah, I'd like to be able to sit on it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think we're kind of stuck with the kind of a similar analysis from the last one.
I don't know how you do otherwise.
Yeah, you know.
if we had the averages, we could maybe make it.
Yeah, but apparently, I mean, if Greg's smart enough and had been here often enough, if that would have worked, he would have brought it for us, right? Yeah, I know that. So,
Well, we were replacing the front doors and windows and, you know, the neighborhood, we've been there for 21 years and we're not going anywhere. And the neighborhood seems to be, everybody's doing a lot of work and, you know, we'd just like to enhance the neighborhood as well.
right. You know, and I'm not unsympathetic to that at all, but it's sort of like the people just before you could do it, but with the
This is
pergola.
half
So
the size.
how are you feeling about pergolas? You know, we want to be consistent and fair, you know? So,
And it's slightly more than that question. Looking at the picture that you provided here, the house to the right as you're looking at your home has an enclosed entryway with a roof on it. We have applicants come before us for that, exactly that type of thing, so that they don't have to stand in the rain while they're trying to open their front door.
But that's our
And-
whole,
I do understand.
Yeah.
And we've routinely not been able to grant them the relief they're looking for because it does increase it decreases the overall front yard setback. The next person coming in, making an application would factor in your house, and all of a sudden that 26.8 drops down to 25.3, and then someone else gets that, and then starts dropping back. So it's as sympathetic as we may like to be, as I'm sure we probably all are.
oh, yeah.
That's our challenge. It's a slippery slope that the pergola type would work for the aesthetic side of it.
Just for interpretation of the bylaw, pergola being an open roof that doesn't need to meet the setbacks.
Correct.
Right.
Correct, okay. Thank you.
it's kind of defeating the purpose of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, I guess if they just said that.
That does the
Given-
same thing.
Yeah.
Creates the same problem.
Okay. Understanding that now, I think the applicant would like to withdraw the application without prejudice.
Move to allow the applicant to withdraw without prejudice. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
If we had the averages, or maybe that worked out, we would have something working.
Craig would have been there. I'll do that one.
You-
Oh, shoot. I'm behind already. No.
Couldn't have been any worse.
Right.
Here we just.
Oh, so.
But we have had,
A. Klein of 146 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Scituate, requests an appeal of the building commissioner's issuance of a building permit pursuant to sections 830 and 920.2 of the Scituate zoning bylaw for the property located at 160 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Assessors Map 58, Block 1, Parcel 4A.
Okay, I think we have it, thank you. So do we want to
Sorry.
address first the...
I think we have to
Appeal period.
discuss the, I think we have
Before we
to,
get into any...
right, I think we do have to do that.
Just first, we have to discuss the appeal period and the time it was made. It was past the 30 days.
It was made within the 30-day frame.
It was made within the 30
Yes.
days?
I received the letter on the 21st in my mailbox, which came to you on the 22nd, and I did the appeal on the 20th of the following month.
The issue is the appeal period is triggered by the issuance of the permit, so it's the date of the permit.
I was
that
not
triggers it.
informed of that.
Yeah.
I was informed that I had 30 days to appeal once upon the letter was received. And in the letter that I received from the Harrises, there was no date, there wasn't even a mention that I had 30 days. That was not made apparent to me. And I went to town hall to ask about it. That was not even made apparent to me. I was not aware of this fact at all.
Right.
So I was really in the dark.
I understand, and again, sympathetic to the basic issue, but, you know, it's the old story, ignorance of the law is no excuse. The appeal period under the law, which is very clear under statutory law and Massachusetts case law, that the triggering period...
When I went to town hall, I was not informed of that either.
Right, I think Mr. Duggan wants to say something.
Assistant Building Inspector, and I spoke to Marcia. I'm not a lawyer. I was aware that there were cases out there involving appeals. It's a moot point because when Marcia came, I hope you don't mind me calling you Marcia.
No.
The letter, we date stamped it in the 18th, which would have been 4 or 5 days beyond the 30-day period. I found out later, I happened to see the cases, that it is tied into the actual issuance of the permit. But when I looked at it, I said, well, it should be from the date you were informed. But apparently that's not the case.
No.
So I was misinformed, and also there was no notice in the letter that I got from them that I did have 30 days from the date of the letter. It's not mentioned in the letter.
Right.
And I was also informed by my attorney that if I did not appeal this now, I would have no further recourse going down the road if the new owners of 160 were to do something that is detrimental to my property. I would have no recourse to appeal anything, and that is why I followed the appeal. As you know, I live in a very fragile ecosystem, and if they were to do any improvements or changes to the building which would have an adverse effect on my property, build anything higher, it would be detrimental to my property. So I felt I did have to file the appeal in this case. I'm not averse to having new neighbors, but I do live in a very fragile environment, and as you know, the house needs much work, but it also things can be done that would harm the environment. And if there's a flood, and you know that area is prone to flooding, and if the land is raised, it would have a detrimental effect on my land and my home. And as you know, and that is why I filed the appeal. And I was, as I'm being redundant, I was informed that if I did not file appeal within receipt of the first letter, I was informed by my lawyer that I would have no further recourse and that the current owners could do things that would be harmful to my land, and I would have no means of redress. And that's why the appeal was filed. And I feel that, and I did what I did with good intentions.
I certainly accept that. I don't know that I accept that you have no further recourse.
Well, why was I? That's what I was told by my lawyer. If you can tell me that I have further recourse, that is all right with me. I just don't want anything that would negatively impact the environment.
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not your lawyer.
I know you're not, but I'm just
But this is a limited permit, and that's sort of the first thing you want to, I mean, first thing I would be looking at for you. But the first thing, unfortunately, we have to look at is the appeal been filed timely? And under the law, it's just real clear it has not.
Well, okay, I just wish that I had been informed, that's all.
Right,
Because
and-
I've put a lot of money out, taking time off from my job to do this. And I think that I could have been better appealed, been told. I thought it was from the date of the letter.
In addition to that, if further work is done and other permits are required, they can't, this permit only gives them specific work that they can do in the property.
Will I be
If further work
notified?
is done, you're not legally bound to be notified, but you could certainly ask them and
I would
check
like
with
to
the
be
town.
notified. I live in a fragile eco-zone. I've lived there for over 35 years, and I've seen the tides change and increase. And if we were to have a big storm, it would have a detrimental effect. And that's what I'm worried about. I just want the ecosystem to be taken care of and property protected. I think that's not unreasonable.
Yeah,
And I've lived in Scituate, and that's why I'm requesting it.
Yeah, and fortunately, this permit allows them, they're not doing any work outside the footprint. It's a roof siding and window replacement, so there is no groundwork involved in this.
Ms. Klein, I share your concern about the environment and the ecosystem. We have had applications, and I expect we will, in the future, have applications along Chief Justice Cushing Highway in that area. And I will probably speak, should something come forward, to build,
Could I, what would I do?
May I finish?
Yes, sir.
To build new structures in that area, I certainly would share your concern about the environment. However, this building permit, the timeliness of the appeal being prominent in our minds, this building permit is for a 16-square, one-layer asphalt roof. That's 160 square feet, right? And 5 square of clapboard, 1,600 square feet, 100 square feet per
Do you know when that
square.
work will be done?
I do not. I just know that this is the kind of permit that, I mean, the building permit has a fee value of $390. This is a very minor project. It is simply, I presume, to replace a roof that currently is leaking or in need of repair to protect the structure,
Okay.
and to replace some clapboards, which may be aesthetic and may be protection, but this is a very minor application with limited impact on the environment. So as much as I appreciate your concern for the environment and all, and as I said, someone was coming to us with a permit request to build a new structure on this property, there'd be a lot more concern. But this is really a very minor permit, and
I do think it would be, okay. So when additional work is being done, I will be notified. I would like that.
If an application has, we don't have, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, we don't have a requirement of the issuance of a building permit for abutters to be notified of a building permit.
No, not unless it needs to go before a board.
Not unless-
some kind of public hearing.
So if they were to do more extensive work on the house, I would be notified of that.
They would have to come before the,
If they have to.
probably in that case, the planning board, because it was extensive, it's in
The house
potential
has-
floodplain, right?
The house needs siding, it needs entire revamping inside, it needs wiring.
I don't want to mislead you. I do not know at what point something would trigger notifying abutters.
Okay.
They could certainly ask for a building permit, something like this. If they needed to replace some plumbing, they would have to have a building permit. Things like that. I don't know that you would be
I
notified.
just would have to be aware of it, do my due diligence then.
I suppose that's probably the safest bet.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Just if I
Yep.
may say one thing, any work that happens outside the existing footprint of the house will certainly attract the scrutiny of the Conservation Commission. There'll be public hearings, I would imagine, and an overview by that body. Any work on the septic system, for example, would need to be permitted by the Board of Health, again, in conjunction with the Conservation Commission. So those public hearings are noticed, and you're welcome at any of those meetings to come and speak and to see what safeguards are being put in place to make sure that what you're concerned about will not happen. I can assure you that the Conservation Commission and Board of Health are very diligent in this situation, and I think you'd be well served, and you'll definitely be made aware as an abutter of any hearings by either of those two bodies.
Okay, that's all that I request. That's really all that I was interested in.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We need to vote on
Ms.
this?
Klein, we are going to vote on your appeal, so.
Unless you want to withdraw it.
Well, you said you said it's because of the fact that I did it too late, it's a
Correct.
moot point.
Well, procedure, I mean, on a practical matter for you, perhaps, but procedurally, we have to either vote on it or you have to withdraw it.
Well, because it's past the due date, why don't we just say, you're going to reject it because it's
Yes.
out of date, so that's a moot point, too. Because we did not wait I did not do it in the appointed time.
Okay, why don't we just vote then?
So I think we're just at a draw.
You withdraw?
I said, I think we're at a draw, so you can
Oh, right.
do what you think is best.
Okay.
So I do withdraw it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you do withdraw?
You do withdraw it, right?
Oh,
And-
Kathy would like to.
Kathy Downey, Cushing, we were one of the many neighbors that got the same letter, and it never said a date in the letter when the building permit was issued. So when we checked with people, they said that we had, from the date we received this letter, because it's via first-class mail, so it was very official looking. So, and then the only concern we have is, because we received this notice, we were then told that
The letter you're referring to from?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And all the people in the area got the letter, and so we were told, it sounds like now incorrectly, that we had to speak now, even though it's a very small permit. But if we didn't speak now, then the further permits were a given type thing.
No, that's, no.
Okay, so we were
just-
ill-advised. So
It's
now
just
that-
in reference to that permit in and of itself, and they, probably out of courtesy, sent out notices saying that they were doing some work.
Okay, so Marcia applied, I think it was $335 worth of fees that she had to pay for this to the town. Is it appropriate for the town to return her money?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
just-
We don't
And
have-
actually,
we
the
don't have that
letter-
authority, but.
The letter we have does issue the date, does to show the date of the permit was issued, September 13th,
Okay, we never
2017.
received that, that was our
Yeah,
problem.
yeah,
Okay,
so,
so it was unfortunate that people were misled because we were trying to do things within the confines of this and working with town hall. so.
well, in some ways, I mean, I'm not sure I'd agree exactly, because I don't know, I've never seen anybody send letters out that they've got a building permit to do anything. So I was kind of surprised to see that, you know, the Harrises sent out a letter that they actually got a building permit, so.
And that put us on notice is what we were told. So I
Right,
guess
right.
Mr. Wamberger could help on that, couldn't he?
Well, I think also,
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
I think,
Why did you send the letter then? Was there?
No, you have to address the question here, but I think the applicant has,
To introduce your new neighbors who are hoping to be welcomed warmly. That's the reason.
I think the applicant has withdrawn, so I think that's also.
Do you need
the
something
case.
in writing from her, Annie? Something, do you need a signature from her for withdrawing? No? Okay.
yeah, and Kathy, if I may, just, the letter that we have is I think, and this is for the studio audience, but or the audience at large, it's a September 20th letter. That's the date on the letter. It is addressed to Marcia Klein. This is apparently her copy. Dear neighbor, apparently a letter that went out in general to the neighbors. I'm guessing this is the one you're referencing. And it says, in connection with this purchase, a building permit was issued to the current owner on September 13th. So it does give the date the building permit was issued, which is notice of the timely appeal. And again, this kind of a letter going out to neighbors is a courtesy of a property owner. It's a wise and thoughtful courtesy if you're going to be doing work on your home and you don't want everyone coming over and say, what are you doing? What do you know, send a letter in advance, say, if you have any questions, come by and see me. That's a nice way to do it. But I don't think anything was done here to mislead or make it, nothing's done wrong here, and other than in a timely way, we have to have an appeal.
I think we received incorrect information, and we apologize for that. But what we received is...
Just don't want you to think we're trying to pull one over on you.
It's very clear that way. Thank you.
Okay. Move to accept the applicant's withdrawal of the appeal.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did we move on the last one?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
All right, 125.
You want to write this one as well?
I'll write this one too. I got two tonight. I'm writing one I didn't agree to write from last time.
I think I'm caught up on my writings.
I have one. I have two. Okay, if we can. Yeah.
Scituate Community Christmas Incorporated of 125 Man Lot Road in Scituate requests a special permit or finding under MGL Chapter 48, Section 9 and Section 420 of the Scituate zoning bylaw to allow the use of the premises located at 125 Man Lot Road in Scituate, Assessor's Map 26, Block 2, Parcel 9, by a philanthropic or charitable institution.
How you doing?
Seems strange to be in the table.
I know.
You look good over there. Stay away from the zoning here. We have enough to do. Secondary 770. Oh, wait. About 1 minute. I'm just trying to
Take
get
your
my
time.
materials organized here. Okay, good evening, Mr. Hallen and board members. My name is Maureen Hurley, and I represent the Scituate Community Christmas, the applicant. With me tonight is Jane Frank, who is the Scituate Community Christmas president, Kim Stewart, somewhere here, over there, Scituate Community vice president, and Bill Limbacher, who is the treasurer. There are other board members that are also here tonight in the audience. Scituate Community Christmas filed an application requesting a special permit finding under Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 9, and Section 423E of the Scituate zoning bylaws, that the use of the premises located at 125 Manlot Road by Scituate Community Christmas is a use allowed by special permit, as it fits the definition of a charitable philanthropic institution. Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9 authorizes this board to hear and grant special permits to allow the use if this board finds that the use conforms to the bylaw. The property was purchased by the Community Christmas on August 29, 17, and the deed is recorded at the Plymouth Registry of Deeds at Book 48854, page 172. As a bit of background about the Community Christmas, because in order to find that it is a philanthropic charitable institution, I think you need some information about the background of the Community Christmas. It was founded as a 501c nonprofit corporation in 1989 to help provide services and new Christmas gifts to Scituate families in need. It has operated as a nonprofit tax-exempt organization continuously since then, serving thousands of individuals and families residing in the town of Scituate. Although the applicant is primarily known for its Christmas-based activity, they also provide support for the disabled, the elderly, and other Scituate residents in need throughout the year. The subject property contains a single-family home built in 1922 according to the assessor's field card. The structure has 1,688 square feet
and the lot contains 40,005 square feet. The property is located in an R1 district and has frontage on both Route 3A and Manlot Road. The property complies with all zoning regulations pertaining to lot frontage, lot area, lot width, front, rear, and side yard setbacks as indicated on the application. No physical changes are proposed to the existing building, and so the structure will remain as is. Property is bounded by the animal shelter, the public safety building, a gas station across Route 3A, and some conservation land. There is a residence located behind the applicant's property on Manlot Road. If you look at the pictures provided, and I think you should all have pictures that were provided. I do have them here too. Pull it out here. You can see there's a lot of full-grown vegetation and trees screening the property from view. If you go onto the property, and the picture of the driveway here, when you get onto the property, it's fairly secluded because of the trees and everything else. It's amazing that you're on, right off of Route 3A, and you're on this lot. Access to the property is currently from Manlot Road, and it will continue to be from Manlot Road. The reason the Scituate Community Christmas purchased the property was to provide a centralized and permanent location where they and other nonprofit community service organizations can operate. The applicant previously utilized 3 separate storage locations, and seasonally they had to have volunteers come and move all of those, the gifts and all of the materials to the Knights of Columbus, a rented room at the Knights of Columbus, where multitudes of volunteers came and wrapped those gifts, and then they were distributed to the clients during the holiday season. The use of the premises at 125 Manlot Road will enable the applicant to operate from just one location, which will improve efficiency. But in addition, the applicant has now streamlined their procedure for servicing clients. This was done over the past few years, and they no longer have numerous volunteers purchasing and wrapping gifts for distribution. Instead, they provide gift certificates and wrapping paper directly to the clients to enable them to purchase and wrap the needed gifts themselves. So referrals are made by clergy, social workers, neighbors, and others, and appointments are then set up with the board. Once verification of need is established, when the client comes in and proves that the need is there, then the board will take that under advisement, and if they're approved, they will provide the person applying with a gift certificates and wrapping paper to purchase their own gifts. So it's much different than it was in the past, where there was a lot of people coming and going to the Knights of Columbus. The applicant has prepared a maintenance plan which provides for lawn mowing, snow plowing, and heating maintenance, among other things, for the existing building. And the applicant is also seeking to provide meetings, storage, and distribution space to 2 other charitable institutions at this time, namely the Scituate Alliance of Natural Disaster Services, SANS, and the Scituate Food Pantry. Both of these organizations serve Scituate residents in need, and SANS will be using the site for storage of materials to be distributed at the time of need, and they'll also hold monthly meetings in the space. The Scituate Food Pantry will be using the site to hold confidential meetings as they screen potential clients applying for services. So SANS is a 501c nonprofit corporation founded in 2012. It helps Scituate residents prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters. And it works closely with the fire, police, and public health departments and to help out in a disaster. The Food Pantry is also a 501c nonprofit organization founded by the Scituate Clergy Association. Its mission is to provide food to eligible residents of Scituate. They have recently expanded their board to include community members outside the clergy, and they'll be holding meetings on the premises. The applicant is finalizing criteria for other 501c nonprofit organizations seeking to use the premises for meetings or similar activities. And the applicant will allow only nonprofits that meet their criteria to use the premises. Due to the limited number of people who'll be using the premises at any given time, there will be no problem with access to the premises or parking upon the premises, as indicated in the photographs. And I don't know if you can see on the driveway, there's actually a really long driveway.
Yeah.
And there's a turnaround at the top of it, which there's, probably another 6 cars can park there. So, back to, due to a charitable institution is not defined in the bylaws. However, Black's Law Dictionary defines it as one which dispenses charity to all those who need and apply for it. In addition, the applicant requested a zoning interpretation from the zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Vogel, prior to filing this request. And Mr. Vogel and town council agreed that the intended uses and the institutions conform to the bylaw. So the applicant believes that the proposed charitable uses are in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Scituate zoning bylaw, authorizing these types of uses within residential districts by special permit under Scituate zoning bylaw, section 950.2B1, and Mass General Laws, chapter 48, section 9. So we are based upon the application materials, and I don't know if you have any further questions when I'm finished, we think that the proposed uses are appropriate for the specific site, will not adversely affect the neighborhood, will not be an undue nuisance on vehicles or pedestrians, will have no significant impact on public or private water supply, and are adequate and appropriate to use. Thank you.
You covered a lot of questions for us.
Okay.
You're not even going to let Bill talk?
So basically, the reason you're here is because of the use change.
The use, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
and again, you've addressed that, the ability for us to make that determination that new use is allowed in that zone, and you've demonstrated that, your charitable organization and the other organizations that will be using it are charitable organizations as well, that again fall under the bylaw and our jurisdiction. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but it seems like, again, there's no, at this point, you're not expanding the building, there's no structure use or land change, it's all just strictly use.
I would like to just clarify, according to the deed, et cetera, that's before us, and the plan, this is the 40,000 square foot lot known as Lot 1 shown on the plan.
Let me just check, but it's 40, I thought it's 40,005.
40,005.
Yes, that's the lot.
This is an A&R that was signed by the planning board under Mr. Limbacher.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Ladies, I'm sorry, could you just take your conversation outside? I can't hear very well over you. Thank you.
The heater kicks on too, so.
And I'm getting old, I can't hear anything, so. The lot, a portion of it is in the aquifer protection zone. That would obviously, were any construction to take place later associated with this use, if it's permitted, would have to come before the appropriate boards to allow that any construction. Because at this point, this Lot 1, because of setbacks, it's already, the building is non-conforming because it's outside the setbacks. It's pre-existing, but it's non-conforming under the lot as created by the plan. So I guess I'm comforted by that this lot is not going to change its basic characteristic without additional boards having to be involved, our board or others.
Is it Water Resources Protection District? Is that what you're?
No, well, it's in the Aquifer Protection Zone. But I'm simply suggesting to the public in general that when we are addressing this use, it is 100% a question of a use change. This isn't going to be turned into a warehouse. It's not going to be significantly altered structurally, and you're going to be limited on what you can do without coming before a board with application for structural changes where that be your desire. So that makes me comfortable with it. You've certainly answered the question about the charitable aspect. Our bylaw specifically stipulates philanthropic and charitable institutions by special permit, so.
I had kind of two questions, not so much about this application, but a little bit more general concerning your use. Given the change of use, I believe under the bylaw, you trigger a review of the parking by the planning board, because it's going to be now open to the public, okay? I mean, not that people walk in off the street, but now it's a public use. And also, the question is whether or not it also triggers something under the Architectural Access Board. Do you have handicapped access already?
No, but in reviewing that, there is an exception for residents and a charitable, nonprofit exempt, tax exempt organization within a residence is exempt from, with no employees, is exempt from complying with the ADA.
You're not going to have a residence anymore.
No.
That's the whole point. The
Right.
residence is gone.
But it's a residence, because it is a residence.
It's
That's
not a
why it-
residence once we change the use.
But it's, the house itself is a residence. So if it's an in.
I think you're missing the point. I do, only because we, on my office, it was a residence, we changed the use. It has to be made handicapped accessible, but don't you want it to be? This is the clientele you're serving, disabled, elderly, people,
Well,
having to have some access.
Because it's not that type of organization. Most of what is going to be done in the building is going to be the board members meeting and deciding who will be eligible for services. And then when the people come, if they did have handicapped people that couldn't come to the house, they would deliver the gifts or whatever they were to those people. But they don't plan to have public access, just people coming and going in the building at all times.
No, that's not real. You know what? That's not our issue. I just kind of bring it up because
Can I
it's
ask you, so was
near
your building
clergy-
had employees in it?
You know what? I'm not going to get into
Okay.
my issue, because I think that if you have somebody who tries to get into your building and can't, it'll be decided by somebody else. It's not really for our board. I just bring it up. If you feel like you know what you need to do, I think it's a great idea. I wish you success. But I just, brought those two issues up. I do think it triggers, change of use triggers review by the, review by the planning board, I believe. Somebody else may believe different, but I'm just bringing those two things up. I know
So
it's not-
you think the change of use triggers a parking review
Right.
by the planning board?
Yep.
Well, Bill might be able to address that after the meeting.
I don't think it does.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it says so. It says, off-street parking shall be provided to service the net increase in parking demand of new or change of use. And then it talks about what those design requirements are. I think the biggest issue, again, is typically, handicapped accessibility parking. That all might be decided under the same question, but, again, I know it's not our issue. Neil has something to say about
Yeah,
it.
I'd just like to address that AAB issue, and that is under the jurisdiction of the state building code.
Yeah.
And without making any judgments one way or the other, that needs to be reviewed by Bob.
Right,
It
okay.
will be reviewed by Bob.
Excellent.
He's also the ADA coordinator.
Well, he's perfectly well-suited to decide that,
I just
because,
wanna point that out,
yeah,
because that will be reviewed.
yeah, I think that's important.
Our site plan review, and any change you use other than single two-family dwellings, now maybe that's, what their kitchen's gonna be, but I would recommend, and I think Bob would agree with me, apply for site plan waiver.
You could get that.
But
You
I
can probably
think
get
we
that,
should go
yeah.
for it.
I just think it's a great idea. It's a great program. It's a great, picture altogether. It's going to be an asset to the
While
town.
we're at it, granting a special permit to zoning board of appeals can also regulate parking.
Yeah, I am not willing to do that. Surprise! Never.
As, and what's been described to us as the use for a charitable institution, what's been described to us is not, doesn't, in my mind, trigger a significant parking issue or access issue. The volume of traffic, as it was described in your very complete description of your intentions, I don't see a much more traffic issue than a single-family house would have. So I'm.
And I think because
people
of the
come and go to
change,
single-family houses. So
because of the change in the way they process applications now, and they don't have all of the people coming to wrap gifts.
Right.
It's just simply, it's done with a gift card and wrapping paper just provided to the person themselves so they can go and get the gifts that they want.
Yeah, but in my mind, I don't see the reason to, I don't think we should review the parking.
I don't think we have
that's- I don't-
authority to review parking, personally.
Well, we could condition the special permit with parking and any number of other things, but I don't see, as it's described to me, I would not recommend it. I would not be enthusiastic about it, but I do appreciate Sarah's suggestion about dotting your Ts and crossing your Is. Something like that, just so that you're not faced with an unknown down the road. I know it's dotting I's and crossing T's.
Okay,
but
there you go.
I did that intentionally, a little levity. Anyway, no one picked up on it.
Those teacher jokes. Any questions from the audience? Bob, I think you were all set.
No, I'm fine. I think it's correct that it probably will trigger at least an administrative review, or a site plan waiver could be requested, and we may well get that. The only other thing I'm thinking of is wanting to know a little bit more about the type of...
Can we just keep it down, please? We can't hear over.
And other people can't hear.
The type of material and the amount of material that's going to be stored in terms of fire detection or fire suppression systems, things like that. So we'll look into that one. Get some more detail about that. Coordinate that with the fire department.
Anyone else?
Motion?
Move to grant the special permit for change of use at 125 Manlot Road, Lot 1, as described in the applicant.
We have a question?
I have to beg ignorance because I've never talked, and I don't know what's really going on.
We just need your name and address for the record, that's fine.
My name is Jerry Sorelli. I live at 117 Manlot Road, across from the fire station, the police, animal shelter, and an empty field beside me between myself and the proposed new use for the very missed Andrew and Lisa Vickers, who live there. And the house had been in darkness for quite a while, and there wasn't much activity at all. So I said, well, and he's my plowman. I'll miss him desperately. I hope. I've lost my husband the last 3 years, so it was great to have a neighbor like Andrew who just could go by my driveway and say, well, she needs to be plowed today, and just do the job, and I'd run after him with my little $50 bill and pay him. And I just want to say that the neighborhood is becoming very, this probably won't have that much to do with it, but between having the fire trucks, which I am glad to have there, and the police, which I am glad to have there, and I do enjoy the dogs walking by so long as they stay off the grass and don't leave too much behind, because I have a large front yard and then a hedge and a nice green, which we worked very hard to keep green, and fortunately the dogs like to go in across into the forest, so that helps out. But I'm just wondering about whether or not there's really going to be that much more activity, really. The lot between myself and the building is owned by the animal shelter or the town, or I really don't know who owns the animal shelter or the town. I mean, I don't know who owns the property. It does grow up, and in the summertime, it's very green, but in the wintertime, of course, everything now will be open, and I don't know, it just seems like a lot more activity for the neighborhood. The fact that they're going to be having this for people who need the food and the health is wonderful. But I also wonder about people who may have only one car. I think everyone now has, in this time and age, has a car in the family. But if it were if the man was going off to work in the morning and the woman has to go get the groceries, how does she get up Route 3A and Manlot Road easily enough to get.
I don't believe they're going to be distributing the groceries from that building.
Pardon me?
They're not going to be distributing the groceries from that building.
Oh, no, I mean, don't people go in and get grocery, get food?
No, not at this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They'll be helping the food pantry, but they won't be a full food pantry. That's one of the organizations that they help.
I missed it all.
Yeah,
You mean
that's
the
fine.
building is not going to be a pantry for
No.
people to come and gather? Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I better sit down.
It was
I hope we cleared that up, but they
It
will
was
be
a-
helping the food pantry.
It was a very long presentation, but basically the Scituate Community Christmas is asking to operate their function out of it, but they've streamlined their processes so that it doesn't mean lots of people coming and wrapping gifts, things like that. In addition, they're going to partner with the other organizations, Scituate Food Pantry and the Sands. But that would be more as a place for them to be able to come and meet and to do coordinating of their activities, but not to take place there on the property. The food pantry will still have its distribution elsewhere, and Sands will do their.
So you say they would be using the driveway, though, at 125 Manlot Road to enter?
Yes.
But simply to individuals to have meetings, an evening meeting of the board of directors to talk about activities. That's how I took the presentation. So
Because someone offered Andrew Vickers, asked him, or from what he told me, someone offered him some dirt, some gravel, some, I don't know what else you could call it. And then when he wasn't home, they just came and delivered it. So he has a 4-foot-high berm all along 3A in front of his house, which he didn't want to have. If that wasn't there, I could see you could just, or maybe you can plow it all in on the land and settle the, what am I trying to say? Fill in on the land.
Grade the land.
And make a whole parking lot right off of 3A.
they're not
I think
proposing
they're
that kind of need.
Having their parking needs met with the existing driveway and turnaround that they have. They're not going to be adding
Well, it isn't much
any
of a
more.
turnaround.
So,
It's a little one, but it can be very wet there. It's wet in the lot next to me, which is owned by the animal, or I don't know if they own it, or if it's, I don't really know who owns the land. I mean, the animal shelter is there, it's their front yard. And there is a big, there was at least, maybe it's gone, but there was water in the front yard, and there's water at the corners on both sides of Main Lot where all the accidents occur.
yeah, again, they're not doing any work. He's used to it.
Okay, I gotta
Just
sit
whack
down.
'em.
But anyway,
Thank you.
I'm concerned.
All right, we have a motion.
Move to grant the applicant's special permit for a charitable institution as described in the accompanying materials
For change of use.
for a change of use.
Right. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may be so presumptuous, I actually prepared a draft decision. Do you usually
If you
do that?
would like to
Yeah, leave it
email
with
it to Annie, and
I just put all 4 board members. That's the only thing I have to do is cross off.
that's all right.
Yeah, the 4th one that
Well,
wasn't here.
if it could be email, if you have it, if you can email
Electronic copy.
electronic
I made a
copy.
few copies, but do you each want one, or?
Probably best to just email it to Annie, and then she can.
Yeah, you can leave the copies with her as well, but if she gets an email copy of it, that way we can
Okay.
get it electronically and look at it.
And we do appreciate that. Once again, we welcome the opportunity to have a draft copy for our review and editing.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thanks.
You gonna write this one too?
I'll write this one.
Why did I volunteer for that first one so quickly?
It's my ticket to heaven. The only one I get. Jay next, right? Jay? Yes, please. Abstain. Jay's here. God. We do.
Do we want to do the discussion for?
No, because I'm leaving.
No, the modifications.
Yes, Jay,
Herringbrook.
yeah, Herringbrook, yeah.
Yeah.
I did not get this new, let me see what it says, because somehow I don't know why I don't have this.
You didn't get the amended agenda?
Discussion, action, and scheduling, modification. No, I did not.
Jake, you're here to make sure I'm 30 years old. Go clean.
Right. Nice and loud.
Informational presentation by Michael Kuchera, Director of Grantham Group, regarding lawsuit.
No. Herringbrook's next.
We're going to just do the Herringbrook one first, the
Right.
modification.
Right.
And then-
We're paying town council. We want you to go home.
Discussion, action, and scheduling on Herringbrook Meadow request for modification to the comprehensive permit.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
I know these two pretty well.
John.
Hi, John. I'm Jay Tallerman. I'm
I've seen your emails.
So what's old is new again here. So this is just a procedural trip today?
Yes, if you just explain that,
Yeah.
what it's for.
Right. The show is going to be, I believe, on the 30th, where you guys are opening a public hearing on this.
Right.
Correct.
And that's been scheduled as kind of a precautionary matter. So when someone comes in to change an existing comprehensive permit, there's usually a two-step process. If they feel it's an insubstantial change, then the zoning board has 20 days within which to consider whether it's insubstantial or substantial. And then if the zoning board thinks it's insubstantial, then the change happens, and they can go and do whatever they want. If the zoning board declares it to be substantial, then it goes on to the public hearing. Here, there's some pre-meetings. I was brought in to help with Brad Washburn, your planning director, and kind of sift through, and we all had some meetings around here and take a look at the project, and the proponents for the applicant seemed ready to concede that it was substantial. In fact, they said that directly to us. That's great. And then the notice of project change got submitted by their counsel. And
The notice of what?
the notice of project change.
Okay.
So when they submitted it to you on November 1st, it was a little equivocal for my liking. It didn't quite say. The consequence would be that if you don't vote in any way in that first 20 days, they get it automatically. So I contacted their counsel, who I know really well, and said, okay, so Mr. Engler said there was substantial, you're saying it's insubstantial. And she said, well, we think it's insubstantial, we'll agree to hold the hearing. I'm like, well, I need you to waive the whole argument altogether, because it has legal significance to the board. And what followed, and I think Annie was on these emails, was a whole flood of emails. I think, John, you were on some as well. I apologize for that. Where I couldn't quite, pin this Jell-O against the wall. And I think they would concede, at least as an applicant, generally, I'm reasonably confident that they concede that they waived the issue. Well, I never quite got, we hereby waive out of them. So I thought it would be a good idea, to have you guys, where within the 20 days, I would say, take a motion to declare this to be a substantial change and to accept their waiver of the issue. Just because I've been through enough 40B arguments, including a whole bunch of arguments on this project itself, to know that you gotta, not my favorite guy, but trust but verify.
Right.
What would be the quote I would use?
So what we're asking for tonight, again, is to agree that this is a substantial change.
Or to vote, right.
And to vote on that, and the fact that
And then we've already got the schedule.
that means we have a meeting scheduled
Right.
to present the change to us as a
Right.
board.
So if I said something like, the motion should be to accept their concession that it is a substantial change and to so declare, and if someone said so moved, and then we had a second and a vote, then we're done with tonight. And then there's going to be a whole lot of discussion about Herringbrook. It's not appropriate for tonight. It is clearly a substantial change in my mind.
And again, the only thing in front of us tonight is a substantial change. And,
And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. I mean, these two have seen plenty of Herringbrook, so.
I just want to,
This guy too.
I just want
That guy.
A few others.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, I think you launched into your presentation pretty quickly, and for the listening audience.
Yeah.
This is pertaining to an application from Herringbrook Meadow LLC. This has been before us in the past, in 2007 and 2010. Permits have been, 40B permits have been issued, and the applicant is now has made inquiries about changing the permit as issued, and the concern is that it will be a substantial change, and it will open up a new hearing before this board before any changes can be made.
And some of the guidelines for substantial change include things like significant changes in height. These buildings are higher. Significant changes of materials or configuration. The configuration bears some hallmarks of the prior one, but the big substantial change here that does require hearing, in my opinion, is that between 2007 and the present, there's been a substantial change in the floodplain map, and that's going to significantly affect the engineering review as well as some other elements of the review. It's also, given the passage of time, the town has done a lot more with respect to affordable housing, so those are significant changes that affect the standards under 40B. So it checks a lot of boxes for substantiality. There are some improvements in the project too, and I think everyone should get a chance to digest them, not administratively, but at a public hearing. Always a good idea, for their benefit and for yours and for all the abutters and everyone else.
You wouldn't happen to have a written out motion that you were considering might be appropriate?
I did one. I just said one. If
Just
I say
stated
it
it.
again, maybe Ed will go with the so move.
I did hear the motion, I can move it, but if you want to
As long
state
as
it
we don't,
again.
as long as Annie has it. I heard it, but I couldn't repeat
Or
it.
you want me to go with it a little more?
Concession of substantial change, so.
And to declare substantial change.
motion to accept substantial change and to declare substantial change.
Except waiver.
Waiver of substantial change.
Waiver of question of substantial change, and to declare the change substantial. Any kind of combination of those.
As to the applicant, Herringbrook Meadow LLC.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There we go.
Do we need to write something up on that,
We
Ginger?
do not.
Okay.
I will inform them tomorrow. There's no.
And also,
It'll be reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
just,
There is actually, there may be a little, I'll coordinate with Annie, I'll check the reg and make sure our requirements.
if we just said for the audience too, who you were working for, just so they. we
Oh,
make
yeah,
it
sorry,
clear.
so I'm special counsel. We started looking at this project in probably 2006 or so. So I've been counsel to the town and to the zoning board and the conservation commission throughout on this, so they threw me back in the saddle. So away we go.
And we have a scheduled meeting on this?
It would be the 30th right now. We're going to confirm the location pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because of the size of the meeting. We're not sure where it's going to be just yet or what else is available.
I just have a question from being an old-time building inspector. What about the money for fees?
Oh, yes. That will certainly be addressed either now or at the next meeting. But the fees per unit, that would be.
Are you talking about expert fees?
Well, there's about a notification fees, and I think we have model rules that were promulgated many years ago.
Right.
I think my recollection is $40 per unit. Butters list.
We can inform them, and the letter on the substantiality will inform them that they have to pay whatever application fee it is. The expert peer review fees will come in as a matter
Yeah.
of course. I've already had a conversation with the last engineer who did work on behalf of the zoning board, and they are available to kind of pick it up where they left off. So-
Within the filing fee under our comprehensive permit rules, there are application fees to be paid for legal counsel assistance on projects of varying sizes, of varying amounts.
Yeah,
They're familiar with.
Yeah, the council piece is probably, there's been some case law since then on how much we could ask for that, so, but it's certainly on the engineering.
And then, as I say, Neil had mentioned the fees for the application and the per unit fee.
Got to follow those rules. Annie and I will put together a letter and make sure that they know that what you did here tonight, and for them to process the right kind of application fees and fill out and provide whatever plans and forms are required.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tallerman.
Yes,
See you.
Is there anyone in the?
I'm sticking around for this because I've been asked to follow up on this next one too.
All right, this might not be very long.
Yeah. Go ahead and read it.
Do you have to formally introduce us?
This.
Formal presentation by Michael Cucchiera, Director of the Grantham Group regarding Lawson Green Apartments LLC.
Point of order?
We do have a point of order regarding this.
Right.
Because we do not have an application in yet, and it is a public meeting, so the discussion of the project without an application leaves us in a little bit of a bind. If it's a general discussion about a 40B, or the process or what's going on there, but if it wasn't published as an open meeting to discuss the there, it was an information for us. So if there's information that could be submitted for us to review or look at, we could take it. But if we go into a discussion without the public, we're going to run a little bit of a risk going forward that the public wasn't notified, abutters and that thing. So I think
My position would be we not here. This is highly unusual. I've been on the board 12 years, and talking with Neil a week or two ago, apparently they do this in planning. They come in for informal discussions. We haven't done it in zoning since before I was on the board. I'm concerned because what I may hear tonight may well influence my decision in this, in the ultimate application. And I feel that it is improper for me to listen to something that the abutters don't have access to because they don't know what's going on. So for that reason, I haven't taken the package that Annie, I'm anxious to see your proposal when it comes in, the application, ready to give it all the time and attention it needs and certainly deserves, but I'm not going to be sticking around. And I would move that the board not hear an informal presentation, if that's an appropriate motion.
Did you have any comment or question on this?
I do think I am, you obviously came prepared with information. We have had individuals, we have published that we would have someone going to ask the board questions about how to prepare their application, how to, what, they wanted to have some additional information other than what they could get from the office. But it's generally a very informal, a few questions, introducing themselves and saying, we'll be getting an application to you. And that type of thing, I think, would be fine if that's what your intention here is. But I do see you have some presentation pieces, and I'd rather see it come forward as a, not be short-circuited.
Sure,
I just think if
done
someone...
in other jurisdictions where we've kind of come in, socialized the project, when in this context, this is a friendly 40B project, we've come in prior, obviously in this case we haven't met with the planning board because the procedure here is pretty clear. You go straight to the ZBA. In other jurisdictions where we've done these 40Bs, we have had an informal session where we've socialized the project, got the ZBA on board to understand. For us, partially, the process varies town to town somewhat, and it's really just an opportunity for us to hear, obviously, to understand the local process, as well as to, in some jurisdictions with this informal process become informal presentation is almost an opportunity to have a back and forth about what you wanted to see in an informal application. And that is more or less where, that's been my personal experience elsewhere. And if that makes the board uncomfortable in this particular context, I obviously would defer to your wishes on that.
Yeah, I think it's no reflection on your project itself. I'm just afraid that down the road, if we don't make it accessible to the public, that it will come back and be a question.
I wasn't aware this wasn't a public session. That's, I guess.
It's a public session, but you haven't notified abutters.
We don't
That's
have
the
an
difference.
application in hand yet, so it's kind of, we've been talking about a future application, but it hasn't really come to us yet, so that we would send out the abutters list and notify the abutters. So that's the kind of dilemma that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions about the general general process, but in terms of sharing the details of the project, in hopes of getting a reaction, response, or guidance of where to go with the particulars of the project, I think that goes beyond the scope of just an introduction that you're going to become coming forward.
Yeah, we've had experience in other towns where we've done 40Bs that it's the ZBA can be very involved up front, and without even an application. We've had instances where the planning board has been very involved, interestingly enough, in the drafting of the application and recommendations to the ZBA. In this case, Scituate adheres to the statute pretty clearly, and that, so I guess so as to, we could just talk about the process. We will be coming before. Is that okay to say?
Yeah, and you know what? Why don't you start? Are you guys going to be the face of this project? Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Yes, my name is Stephen Coulter. I'm the chair of the Scituate Housing Authority.
Okay.
And I'm Michael Cucciara. I'm with the Grantham Group LLC, the developer of the project, in conjunction with, in cooperation with the Scituate Housing Authority.
Okay, so Scituate Housing Authority is a co-developer of the project?
No, they're not a co-developer. They're just our development partner in a non-legal sense. They were the entity that provided the site to the project, have been supportive. The project is going to be built on Scituate Housing Authority land, formula, which will be conveyed to the developer.
You mean it's proposed to be built? I'm sorry, that legal background just sticks to me.
Now, I recall when we've done other 40Bs, there's lips and laps, and this is a...
This is not. This is, okay, so what's interesting about, there's that local initiative process that typically is a town-initiated one. In this case, we are going to be financing this project. It's 30 units of affordable elderly housing with federal low-income housing tax credits, and as such, we're getting a state subsidy. Those tax credits come down from DHCD, so there's a different process, sort of a similar process in the sense that it's a friendly 40B, but it's the DHCD takes the role of saying, okay, actually, we're going to be providing subsidy to this project. We're going to be able to provide you with the eligibility and a determination that it will be affordable, and it will conform to what would typically be a LIP.
And I think that's the kind of information that is helpful in this presentation, because we do have a viewing audience, and I'm amazed at how many people say, I saw you on television. Please.
And you looked really good, that's what they always say.
Anyway, they don't sleep well, I guess. But
yeah.
So you've actually, that's positive, because I think you probably sparked some people's interest. It's a friendly, cooperative venture with the local authority. That will be worth knowing. Right. Perhaps people will come out to support or find out more about it as a result.
Right, and it has been somewhat on the community's consciousness somewhat. Last spring, with the support of the Community Preservation Commission, the project was awarded a substantial amount of CPA funding $2.5 million from the town to support the project to make it, to maximize the level of affordability. This project is going to be serving a certain percentage. It's going to be 100% affordable, meaning that the units will be in perpetuity. So it will be 100% affordable to persons at 60% of the area median income, which is a poverty determination standard, and 30% of area median income, which is very, very low income. The target audience for this is going to be for the community's senior population that is being priced out of town, more or less. I think that's the proper way to put it. That's who we're going to be serving, and frail elderly, and allowing folks to age in place in a fully handicap and ADA accessible facility with services that will be provided by South Shore Elder Services.
You anticipate a local preference?
Yep, at the outset, there will be a local preference on the project within the confines of applicable federal fair housing laws.
When do you anticipate filing the application?
The application, well, the application before the ZBA, we'd like to file for a comprehensive permit to be on the agenda in December.
Good.
The reason being that we are up against a very particular, we can't file this until we get our project eligibility letter out of DHCD, and that we expect in the next 24 hours. So we, ideally, I would file the week after Thanksgiving in order to try to make the timing work out to provide for notification, abutter notifications, and to get on the agenda in December. What we've done, the reason I say that and why there's a sort of a time crunch associated with this is that this project is going for federal low-income housing tax credits, and it's a very sort of anachronistic program, but no, it's not anachronistic. It's very obscure in the sense that
arcane.
Yeah, it's the way it works is that annually the state will have one funding cycle for this, and for every dollar of credit that's available, there's $50 worth of projects chasing it. So it's a very competitive process. In this particular case, the substantial amount of CPA funding that the town is providing to the project has really focused the DHCD's attention on this, and we are hopeful that if, basically I need to make an application by the end of the month, or in order to get into the funding cycle, I need to be able to say that I am on my way to receiving a comprehensive permit in either December or January of this year. Otherwise, I won't be able to file for another year and a half, and then we're further down the road.
We want to just keep in mind the process. Once we do what you hand us, the application, we have a time constraint as well. There's 2 weeks.
30 days.
But also we have to get the list out, notify the abutters, and schedule the meeting. So that,
right.
Our clock ticks once we receive the permit. So the sooner we get it.
I can't file that. Unfortunately, I would have filed it yesterday if I had
that decision.
If I had the PEL from the department, the DHCD, that says I'm allowed to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grab my copy.
So I guess what we're
just
trying to say, once we get that application, it certainly will be.
Right.
We'll move it along, but
as possible.
it takes what it takes.
Yeah, no, I fully understand. This is, just an opportunity to just try to socialize it. We've had discussions with all the town departments as part of the development review team, incorporated their concerns into the project, particularly fire-related concerns, DPW, et cetera. All those elements have been built in to our site design, as it were, that we'd be presenting. So we've taken in, what I'm trying to provide you with is sort of some context on the fact that we have been in discussions with the town, and their comments are reflected in the...
That should shorten the review time, I would think.
Right, and so there's obviously the other bit, which is the ZBA will be, we have a site civil engineer, and those engineering drawings, including stormwater management, which is all going to be handled on site. It's a dry site, so.
And again, as part of the application, if you do want to include their comments from the different departments, if you have them already, that would be helpful, so we don't have to go out further searching for them.
Right, and I'm very cognizant of the precedential kind of value of this, it being a 40B. 40Bs tending to be somewhat, contentious, in some cases contentious. Obviously, we're not expecting any special treatment, it being as compared with any other sort of 40Bs, but we do want to, we are aware of the need to have a third-party review of the site civil, the stormwater, and what we're hoping to do is to be able to get to a decision, a comprehensive permit decision containing a ton of contingencies that might be, that would be conditions precedent to filing of a building permit. That allows me, as developer, to get an application before the funding agents, the state funding agencies, and then to allow some of that other due diligence to occur at the same time, coterminous with the sort of application period.
Now you are starting to make me uncomfortable, so, It seems like you're asking us to approve something before we have all our information.
Oh, yeah. No.
But I think he's saying that the information is forthcoming in the packet.
Yeah, it'll be.
I hope so, because I'll tell you the other thing is that as much information as you can provide in the application, then the public is going to be better informed, the abutters are going to be better informed, and,
What's the definition of a butter? What's the difference?
Oh, I don't have the town definition.
It's an abutter direct, it's an abutter to an abutter within 300 feet.
Okay, yeah.
And it is parties directly across the street.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's
Under Chapter 48, Section 11, that's the definition, but the assessor knows that. When you ask them for a
Right.
abutters list,
They'll go into the assessor's
Right.
office. They'll
Yeah.
generate the list for you.
We're in some, and actually, one of the abutters is sitting right here, which is the housing authority, which is as landlord.
I think you got that, I think they're going to be on your side.
Yeah.
I get the
We've already
impression.
had, an open meeting with the residents there to, introduce them to the project, to let them know what we were doing and to take into consideration concerns and things like that.
So, good, so it's
Me-
kind of,
And don't want to put you on the spot, Annie, and I really won't. But if the request for the abutters list, I'm concerned that with holidays, you're saying getting back to us after Thanksgiving, then we're into December, that week, and our meeting in December, I think, is the 21st. So and then we're into the holidays. So I'm wondering if can that process of getting the abutters list created be streamlined at all?
It has to, the notice has to run
For two
for 2 consecutive weeks, but 2 weeks prior to the hearing, so it pushes it back another week from what it is generally. It's not
See, I don't know how we can move that up at all. I'm not sure that you can
Can't.
get on the December meeting.
we have to do what we have to do.
I was trying to think of if you could go to have the assessors create it, request it, but that's
Right,
not
but
even.
It has to be a full application before you can do that, and I can't even file with you until I have my state agency determination. I was hoping that I was going to be dropping that on you 2 days prior to this, but.
Okay, thank you.
He's going to be hard pressed with the holidays to do it.
Anxious to see it.
So.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Just a tough audience.
And they
I will
stood
say, I'm
here.
interested in hearing the application. I'm very happy to hear that we have a locally supported application. I am familiar with the action of town meeting in the past, so I have some familiarity with what I anticipate is coming down the road. And hopefully it won't be quite as contentious as some of the 40Bs I've been involved in over the years.
Don't underestimate Jay's talent.
I would never.
Thank you.
Was I there that week? Okay.
We'll see you soon.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of October 19th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.